You ask, we answer. Welcome to Can This Marriage Be Saved, where we go up against common relationship problems and help you determine if this relationship should stay or go.
Welcome, everyone. We're back with the next episode of Can This Marriage Be Saved? I'm Rabbi Shlomo Slatkin.
I'm Rivka Slatkin.
And we have an exciting guest. We don't usually have guests. Usually get to hear just from Rivka and I, but we have an exciting guest today. Yitzchak Pinchas is a Jewish Torah-observant astrologer who's been practicing astrology in accordance with the Torah for over 15 years. His fascination with personal transformation led to extensive research in Jewish philosophy, psychology, and astrology. He's thrilled to align all these three passions in his new book, Kosher Astrology, A Jewish Guide to Celestial Wisdom. You're probably asking yourself, have we gone off the deep end here? Like, what are we... Now, we were talking about couples issues. Why are we talking about astrology? Now, as we know, your listeners out there, some of you are Jewish, but many of you are not. This is really applicable, as we'll learn, to everyone. But it's something fascinating that we kind of dabbled in over the years, heard about, but really in this last year, we'll tell you the story. With the book, Kosher Astrology, it really opened our minds to seeing that this could be something, perhaps a missing ingredient for couples.
Yeah, we kind of kept it a secret for a while from all of you that we were reading this book and talking about it and thinking about how it could help you all. But we first had to figure out how it could help us so we would be able to share it. And we know that it could help us in our relationship and then come out, ready to share. So we're ready to share.
But it's funny because it was about a year ago and you were listening to podcasts that were talking about, you have to learn about astrology. You have to see if this is so interesting. And I said, okay, but I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm a rabbi. I don't know. It sounds like, is it kosher, right? So I went on Amazon and I was looking for Jewish books about astrology because I know there's some Jewish books out there that have been written about astrology. I thought maybe they could explain all the different opinions. And I saw this new book that just came out called Kosher Astrology, and it was like, I don't know, correct me, how many 400 pages, this big book here. And I'm like, I have to get this. So I ordered and I was waiting every day on Amazon, when's it going to come? When's it arriving? And I'm a very thorough reader. I'm pretty slow though. I don't read a lot of English books, and it takes me a really long time, but I read the book cover to cover, probably, I don't know if it was a few days or a week, which is pretty fast for me. So it's very fascinating. It's very easy to read, very easy to understand. And it really opens your mind to seeing that astrology is, first of all, it's not just some type of occult thing and it's beyond just your horoscope. It's very complicated, very, very complex, and very, very detailed. And as I learn more about it, and we learn more about ourselves through looking at our, the birth chart, as we'll talk about, we're able to see that this is something that could be very helpful for people to understand themselves and also to better understand couples. So I want to pause here and have our expert, just to share a little bit. If you want to do a little bit of just a little introduction, and then we'll ask you some more specific questions.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a great honor. So my name is Yitzchak Pinchas, and I'm the author of Kosher Astrology, A Jewish Guide to Celestial Wisdom. So it's nearly a 500-page book, and it covers everything that you need to know about astrology. First, because a lot of anybody who's from a religious background, it tends to be this notion that astrology is forbidden, that it's the Bible is against it, the Torah is against it. So I covered that in the book. There's a kosher form of astrology, and one that's based on a psychological development that's 100% kosher. And then the other section of the book really gets into what astrology is. What can it do? People are just used to, that there's a sun sign. Like if you read the horoscopes in the newspaper, Pisces, your boss is going to give you a raise on Tuesday. Is that what astrology is? No, it's way more complex, and we're definitely going to get into it, and can really help you understand yourself, your purpose, your struggles, your gifts, what you're here to do, and then also the big relationships in your life. See how you affect each other. So there's so much information that we can learn from that.
That's great. Yeah, and if you encourage you to read the book, because you really get a really good basis for, if you're a skeptic, you'll see the validity in it, and then once you actually see your personal chart, you'll see that it's kind of hard to argue with it. I mean, it's just it's very uncanny the things that, someone who could read your chart and know about you that no one would know about you unless they knew you really well.
Yeah, I think we were playing around with reading our own charts, and I'm very open. For instance, I talk a lot about childhood and how childhood trauma can impact relationships. And I myself am from an adult, I'm an adult child of divorce, and I share a lot of information on our podcast. But Shlomo was looking at my chart and it said, you had a difficult childhood. And I'm
And it will be a big part of your life experience.
like, how in the world?
How is that possible that from the day you were born, that this was like known that this would be in your life?
Ordained. So tell us about that, Yitzchak, because that was like, whoa.
Yes, it's completely wild. So depending on your chart, I haven't seen your personal chart, but depending on your chart, if you have like Saturn or Chiron connected, and I'll explain what those planets are, connected to your moon represents your emotions. So if you have some of these other planets, Saturn is all about discipline and restrictions. And if it's showing in your chart that it's connected to your moon, to your emotions, that might mean that your emotions are restricted. So growing up in childhood, you might not have felt emotionally supported. And that can be very painful and difficult. Or if there's Chiron is the wounded healer. So when that's connected, let's say to a planet, could be your emotions, could be your thinking, could be your sun, your overall identity, then there may be some type of wounding or trauma. And through the process of trying to heal yourself from that wounding and trauma, you gain great expertise because you personally went through it and you had to do all of the work to really heal yourself. Then you're able to help heal others. That's why it's a very powerful thing, being a wounded healer with Chiron. So that shows us that some of our deepest struggles and painful situations in childhood or throughout life can be part of our greatest strength, can be part of our gifts. It's not for nothing. It's not wasted that you went through this painful situation. It was helping you to grow into who you need to be. And with the charts, you can actually see that. And it's so validating to understand that, especially if you've gone through difficulty and suffering in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel, I always share, I definitely feel that it helped us pave the way to be able to help couples. Not only from childhood, but even struggles in our own marriage. We're always very open about sharing those. So
I guess one question kind of dovetailing this is, so let's say if your chart, let's say, well, I guess let's explain maybe what the birth chart is. And, you like into like a snapshot of the moment you're born, that this is where all the planets were in alignment. And then that shows various things about your personality and emotions. Could you share with us a little bit more about that?
Yes. What's really fascinating, this is the heart of what astrology is. The moment that you're born, all the energies of the solar system, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, they're all in a particular configuration. So the moment that you're born, God takes that energy and implants it within you in a baby. And so you have the whole energy of the solar system, and you're tasked in this lifetime of bringing that energy forward and really working that energy of that moment and bringing those gifts to the world. And we can print out a map of that moment of when you're born to see exactly where all the planets were, all the unique configurations, what was happening. And that's the blueprint for your life. Now, it's not a finished product. This is, a 2-month-old baby and a 90-year-old person both have the exact same chart. So this is a process, a growth process that you're here to work through the particular aspects in your chart, both the difficulties and the gifts. And then you're here to you're here to hone your skill sets and then affect the world with it. So it's an incredibly powerful tool and piece of information about your life. It's so personal to you. So it can be incredibly, incredibly helpful.
Now, how exact is that? I mean, because you could, and this is one thing I would say, like, person could go online and look up on one of these websites where they can give you a chart for free. But, I would say warn people that, all because they give a particular interpretation if you're not dealing with someone who really knows what they're talking about, and it could give you certain ideas that may or may not be accurate. I mean, how exact is it, and how much room is it for interpretation?
So here's the thing. So human beings were very complex. We have many, many layers, including conflicting layers. So the problem with going online, you can see your chart online. The problem is you'll click on one aspect and it'll describe one part of you. Then you'll click on another aspect and it'll describe a different part of you which can be completely conflicting. So it's really important to understand the different layers. And every single layer is not complete in itself because there's other energies that are mitigating. So it's really important to have somebody who understands it, who knows how to put the whole picture together. I've had like horror stories, people telling me, oh, I checked online, it says I'm never getting married or I'm going to have it. No, that's nonsense. It cannot be fatalistic. That's a huge part of what makes it kosher. It cannot be deterministic or fatalistic. This is not something that's set in stone. This is a potential. You're here to work with that potential. So nobody can tell you that you're not capable of doing something or anything like that. That's really important. And again, online, they tend to do some of that also.
Interesting. So, right. So if it says something, you're saying if it says something like you're going to have this,
or you're going to get married at this time, or let someone, a couple that's coming, like I can see like a couple that's working, wants to work on their marriage. And well, I looked at my chart and it said that, I'm going to be getting divorced, and then or that I have some challenges, or,
That's a great point. There is something called the divorce factor. I don't believe in it at all. It's when Uranus hits your Venus, right? So people call that the divorce factor. What does that mean? Venus is your self-development, your hobbies, your interests. Uranus is all about being out of the box, being authentic. So when that energy comes into your life, it happens once in 22 years, yes, you're going to want to explore life. You're going to want to, now it can happen that people get divorced if they're feeling very restricted. So that's something that I always tell couples, whenever you have the energy of Uranus in your life, it comes into your life, which is all about being authentic and true. You need to support each other and you need to give each other more room and space to grow and self-development. If you don't, if you try to hold on, you try to restrict the person from growing, that's when it can cause problems. But it's not a divorce element. It doesn't mean that. Only if you are not paying attention and addressing the issues, it can lead to that.
Wow. We hadn't heard about. Did you hear about that? The divorce
I
factor?
haven't heard about that, but we've heard about, like, we've had like, like we call it like a midlife crisis. I mean, you see that with a lot of couples. And I think in your book, you write about, like, sometimes if it's very hard for a couple when they're struggling and all of a sudden something happens and it seems like a person's just checked out. That if you knew that, like, I think you wrote in the book, if you knew like in 9 months, this is going to fade away, then okay, like we're going to get through this together. But if it's just like, wow, like you're gone, what am I supposed to do about this now? Maybe it's the end of the relationship. And I think we see this a lot where people have, we may call it a midlife crisis, or I don't know, return of Saturn, any of these type of energies that are going on. I think if you tell us a little bit more about that, and in general, like the transits, like how that works. So that's another thing in addition to the birth chart or on top of the birth chart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So first is a birth chart, right? So that's a snapshot of the heavens the moment you're born. So that's static. It never changes. That's all your personality potential, all your inner struggles, your potential, your gifts, what you're here to do. And throughout your lifetime, you're here to develop it. So that's one chart, the birth chart. Then there's something called transits. This is throughout your lifetime, the planets in the skies will be connecting with the planets in your birth chart at different points in your life. And that's how we can map different times in your life when different types of energies are coming into your life, all of them to help you grow. So one of the big tough ones, and I'll talk about it again, is Uranus. Uranus is all about, many of us have different beliefs and thoughts and ideas, but we're afraid to share it publicly because there's cancel culture. What's our rabbi going to say? What's our neighbors going to think? What's my spouse going to think? It's better I shouldn't, might be controversial. So, excuse me. So I might just keep it to myself. When Uranus comes around into our lives, that's when we're like, no, I need to be authentic. I need to be true. I don't care about the consequences. It's more important. I don't care about the social effects. It's more important that I'm going to be authentic and true and speak my truth. And that energy, so it's great. It really helps us, gives us a spine. It gives us the ability to speak up for ourselves. It's an individuation process, and it's a very important part of our development. But what happens, you're in a marriage, and all of a sudden, your spouse has this energy and you're used to them being a certain way. So I had this issue with a couple. They were a young couple, and I saw that the husband he had a very sensitive spot in his chart where he was always giving to others and doing for others, but he was neglecting his own needs and he was sacrificing himself for others. So everybody loved him because he was so great. He never said no. He always did everything. And then I saw that he's going to have coming up this energy of Uranus hitting this very sensitive spot. And whenever there's an imbalance in our chart, that's what this energy is here to help us balance. But because it was such a strong imbalance, so I saw that it can be a very strong, where he might go very strongly in the opposite way. And that may be very difficult for everybody that knows him. That before he was doing everything for everybody else, and now he's focusing it on himself. And so I explained this energy, A, it's only going to last for about 9 months. B, it's here to help him grow. It's here to help him be more balanced. So I told the spouse, this is a time for you to support him in this process. It may be more difficult because he's not going to be like what you're used to. Used to him doing everything for you, and now he might feel like he's being more selfish or more focused on himself, and that you're not used to that. But it's temporary, and B, it's here to help him grow, to come to balance. So a few months later, she called me back. She said, if I didn't have this information, like I'm having a really hard time with him, but I would have thought that all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's acting different. This is not who I married. This is not the person. This would have, I don't know, I might have been thinking about divorce. But because I know that it's a certain period of time and I understand what's happening, this is, and it's here for his benefit to help him, then I can really work with it, even though it's much more difficult for me.
Wow, that's huge. It doesn't always last the same amount of time, though, for everybody, I would imagine, right?
So Uranus transit is usually between 9 months to a year and a half, depending on where your aspects are in the chart. Mm-hmm. So yes, these certain transits, they will, again, because everybody has a unique chart and it moves but it's usually about 9 months to a year and a half. Or a Pluto transit can last 2 years to 2.5 years. Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, gosh, how many people could have been saved? Like, how many marriages, just knowing that their spouse is going through something different.
When I do chart readings for people, I always hope that I'm catching them before their Uranus transit versus after. So many times, I see that they just had it the last year or two, and they tell me it was the most rockiest time of their marriage. Wow. Again, because they're not understanding what's happening. So if you can get people before that, they should know what's happening. It's so helpful.
How many times does it happen in a lifetime?
So Uranus, you have 5 personal planets: the sun, your identity, who you are in your chart; your moon, your emotions; Mercury, your communication and thinking; Venus, your right brain, which is your intuitive and creative side; your artistic sensibilities, your sense of self-value; and Mars is your action. So Uranus might hit one of these 5 planets. It'll hit the planet once every 22 years. But it might hit your sun now, and in 2 years from now, it might hit your moon. So 2 major parts of you within 2 years. And if you have some people have a bunch of their planets all bunched up. So all of a sudden, for those people, it's incredible. All 5 parts of them are being hit with this energy at one time. Whoa, it's like, pow,
Wow. Of all the planets, would you say the Pluto transit is the most impactful, or are they all, it's super impactful?
They're all impactful, but Pluto, I would say, is the most intense. Pluto is so powerful. So Pluto takes it's 248 years to orbit around the sun. It's like the longest time from all the planets in the solar system. And so Pluto is all about intensity. It's about death and rebirth. It's the caterpillar transforming into the butterfly. So this can be a huge shift in your life. And I see people all the time where they have a strong Pluto in their chart. And I talk to them about their capabilities, and they don't recognize it. They're recognizing their part where they're the caterpillar. And I always say, if you tell a caterpillar that it can fly, it looks at you like you're crazy. What are you talking about? I need 28 legs just to walk. I've never flown in my life. Why are you saying I can fly? But then it goes through a process, a transformational process. It could be like a dark night of the soul, right? Where the caterpillar turns into it liquefies, it turns into a cocoon, and then it emerges as a butterfly that can fly. It can do things it never imagined it can do. So you have like in Congress, the Speaker Mike Johnson. He was a 1-term congressman, right? There's 400 something congressmen, and so he had this transit of once in 60 years of Pluto connecting to his sun, to his identity, and that's when he transformed into the Speaker of the House, one of the most powerful positions in government. Wow. So you can see for people, this is a major time of transformation in your life. You're no longer your old self. And also all your old problems go bye-bye because you're now transformed into a new self. It's all about empowerment. But it can include like a dark night of the soul where you're really digging deep. Who am I? What am I here to do? So, so that can be a very powerful process of what we're here to do and grow with Pluto.
Wow. I'll just give you like a break for a second. Shlomo, just speak to the people who are watching about if they think their spouse is going through a major change. Like, just give them like a minute of what can they do. Just pausing for a minute since we just spoke about something so
Yeah, I wanted to say something
and then we'll
about
come
that.
back to
Yeah.
Yitzhak. But just in case people are watching and they're thinking like, well, gosh, we must be going through this now. And, how do I give my spouse space to grow and to become fully, in themselves, but also without feeling threatened. And
Well, if they know, we're saying if they know this information, or even if they don't know this information.
I guess, like just the standard midlife crisis, I
Right.
guess.
I mean, it's all about, I mean, look, if you know that it's going to end, it's a lot easier. Otherwise, you're just kind of committing to the relationship and hoping for the best. At the same time, it's really about talking about things and listening to each other. I mean, that's what we help couples be able to learn how to communicate about their feelings and what's going on for them and be vulnerable and just say, look, I'm having a hard time. Or for both people, the person who's not going through the, Uranus energy or whatever energy they're going through that seems disruptive, to talk about their feelings and how it's impacting them, and having their spouse hear that, not to the extent that they have to change, but just to be able to validate, yeah, I realize it's hard for you because I'm feeling a little bit strange lately. I'm not myself. I'm not as helpful as I used to be. Or on the other hand, the person who's having the, let's say the crisis or the change, to be able to talk about what they're going through, and just for both people to be able to hear that and validate that and maintain the connection, even though things feel a little bit scary. I think that's really crucial. Yeah.
Is the maintaining the connection. Like I don't know exactly what this is looking like, but I love you and I want to stay connected with you.
And we've seen people like go through, I mean, and we didn't know that was what they're going through, but go through these type of things. And when they worked on the relationship and maintained connection, and by doing the work and over time, they were able to, create even a better relationship than they had before.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just a very powerful, growth process. Like there can also be, like I like to say, there's major turning points in our lives. There are different seasons of our lives, and we're here to go through different growth. And so at each major turning point, there's a three-step process. This first, it might be a crisis point where all of a sudden life can't stay the same the way it was before. Something is shifting, something is ending, something has changed. You get fired from your job, you get divorced, whatever kind of crisis it is. Okay, the old way of life has ended. Then, once the immediate crisis ends, we enter liminal space. This is like a no man's land. Now what? I'm no longer that old self. I no longer have that old situation. But what am I doing now with my life? So you can feel very lost and unanchored. And this is a process. It's okay to feel that. This is a healthy process of trying to regain a sense of self, of who you are, what you're here to do. And during this time, different things will come into your life. You're going to learn new information. You're going to meet new people. So, for example, when I was going through something like that, I met with an artist who told me that I can be an artist. And I looked at him like he's crazy. What are you talking about? I'm a scholar. I love psychology, but I'm not an artist. I don't have good hand-eye coordination. I can't paint. But I was trying to stay open to it. And I did have different ideas that I want to bring out. and then I came across a program called Adobe Illustrator. It's an illustration program. And I loved it. And I was able to create all these illustrations. You don't have to be perfect because the computer program helps you. And in my book, I created 75 pages of illustrations that I created myself. This was something new that I learned in my 40s. This is something, and this is what the liminal space, it allows. Because if you would have told me before and I'm an artist, I would have looked at you like you're ridiculous. I wouldn't even have given it a chance. And so being in this open space allows you to try new things that you never thought of yourself. Because sometimes we're so stuck in our way, how we think of ourselves. So this is an incredible open opportunity. And then it leads to new direction. And then you find your purpose and your new sense of self. And then you can move forward with this new sense of purpose and direction.
Wow. I didn't realize that you made the illustrations in the book. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I think maybe some of us realize that that's the way life is, that life has these stages. I think in relationships, for some reason, a lot of us just feel like, well, it's supposed to be a certain way, especially because relationships start off so great most of the time. And then all of a sudden, we talk about in the imago therapy that we do, that It starts off, we call the romantic stage, and then it goes into the power struggle. And that's where most people, half the people get divorced and half the people are just become roommates. And that really there's something else. There's a real love. There's a third stage. And I think to realize that, and we talk about this also, that the conflict that we have is really for the purpose of growth and healing, that it's not just, life's not, and relationships are not just kind of like a straight line that everything's just supposed to be smooth, that there are going to be bumps in the road and that's okay. But that if you hang on tight, it will get you to an even better place. I think it's hard for people to, I feel like we're not so resilient to be able to hang on.
Yeah.
And I think this is helpful to understand that this is built into the fabric of life.
There's constant developments. We're here. We're not static human beings. So there's two things. There's the individuals, the husband and wife, and then there's the couple, the relationship. So just from an individual perspective, we're constantly meant to grow and shift and change and shakes things up. But, in a healthy relationship, we're here to support. It's not what's best for me. Do I want my spouse to do what's best for me? I want what's best for her, or I want what's best for him. And I want him to grow and reach his highest potential. And I want to support him or her in that process. And so that's that will make a great relationship when you're rooting for your spouse. And okay, there's adjustments. Communication is crucial. Let's talk about it. But you can't be static. If you think really your relationship is always going to be exactly the way it is now, you're going to run into trouble. That's not how life is meant. Life is meant to grow and to challenge and to push and to move and to achieve incredible things. That's what we're here to do.
As a Virgo and as a Taurus, change is very hard for us. And I don't know a lot about astrology, but I do know that like a Virgo can be a control freak and a Taurus can be very stubborn. So the two of us are very resistant to change. So I guess, so knowing there's bumps in the road and now, 24 years later of being married, I guess, how can somebody live feeling like, okay, I have stability, but also knowing like, okay, there could be a huge transit ahead without like all this dread, like everything's going to just turn upside down. I guess, how do you live like that?
So for sure, being a strong earth, Virgo and Taurus, they like their things fixed and routine. And so for sure, change is very hard, no question about it. But it's part of the process of life. So here, it doesn't mean that everything is completely changing. You can have some of your safety places of things that's, ongoing and routine, but there always requires balance. We can't get stuck. That's the danger. So it's a very powerful energy to have that solid foundation. That's an incredible thing. The danger of that is getting too complacent, getting too stuck in the comfort zone. And so, yes, it's balance. So the big key to understand is all of these energies are here to help us grow. It's not here to punish us or to hurt us. It's here to help us grow and to push us a little bit, again, out of our comfort zone. But that's where the growth happens,
How do you, let's say Pluto, for example, it's coming. It's going to turn us from a caterpillar into a butterfly, but it's either going to be like, we either kind of lean into it or we resist, and we're gonna learn the hard way, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Right. There's a famous saying, resistance is futile, like the change is coming whether we like it or not. Get on board. Otherwise, it can be very painful because these energies are here to shift in our lives. And we're not, the caterpillar, when it's ready to transform, if it tries to stay a caterpillar, that can be very damaging. So understand. So yes, there can be apprehension, but if we know, wow, I'm about to take a step up, I'm about to achieve some of my great skill sets are ready to come to the surface. Wow. Okay. So let's focus on that. And yes, okay, I might have to do some challenging things, but I'm ready to go to the next level. That's what it's here to do. So if we have that mindset, that can be very positive.
How do you know what you need to do? Like, how does a person know? I mean, you can see it in your chart exactly like, well, what do I need to do now to become the butterfly?
So here's the beauty of it. If you're open, so first, I always tell people there's two things you need to do in life. One is to stay open, like the example I gave you of the person who told me I'm an artist, right? So I needed to be open to an idea that wasn't something I thought of. And the other thing is to do the healing work. We have so much stuff. Every human being, we all have different traumas or different areas in our lives or inner conflicts that we have to work through. So we have to do the healing work. If we're doing those two things, if we're doing the healing work and we're open, then we get exactly what we need. Like, I didn't know anything about astrology. I thought astrology was nonsense. Then at the exact right time in my life, it came into my life. And again, at the time, I had no idea what a big impact it's going to make in my life personally, but I was just fascinated by it. And I started studying it. And 15 years later, I came out with a book and I'm sharing it with the world. So the right information at the right time, when you're in this liminal space, this open space, when you're ready to go through a major transit, the right people and the right information will come into your life for you to take the next step. But the key is you have to be open, because it may look very different than what it did previously.
Yeah, no, I think that's fabulous for people listening also to really understand is there's going to be a lot of letting go. And we always talk about conflict is a golden opportunity for connection. There's always gold underneath the frustration that at least a couple's having with their partner. So when there's conflict, when there's frustration, instead of slamming the door, but really getting curious, like what is this here to teach me? What is the gold what is what's happening underneath this, like mining for gold?
Well, if that's trying to happen
But
there,
yeah, what is the growth that's trying to
it's the
happen?
caterpillar trying to turn into the butterfly, right?
Yeah, for sure it is. And it's hard because some spouses, let's say, are really into the healing work, others and their partners are not. And in that case, we talk to them about just keep understanding what safety looks like for the other person, and how it's not necessarily safe to go out and do all this healing journey, but try to learn through what we teach and others, like, what does it mean to be a safe partner? How can you make this safe for your spouse to eventually come on board? And that's a little bit hard to navigate because everybody has different styles. um but yeah, that's also something to think about. If you're watching this and you love it, and like, oh, there's no way my partner is gonna buy into this, how can we help their partner feel safer for them to, I guess, be open to.
Yeah, well, that would be, I think that can maybe dovetail into this, just the idea about the couples chart, to be able to see, even if the spouse is not interested, like, what are your differences? Where are you clashing? What's going to be a sensitive issue for your spouse that maybe you could work on based on your personality, even though you might know some of these things, but some of these things you might not be aware of. Could you tell us a little bit more about how that works with the charts?
Sure. There's so many unique configurations. So you can take two people's birth charts and overlay them one over another, and you can see how the energy of one interacts and connects with the energy of the other. So, for example, I recently did a couples chart reading where they had what's called a double whammy of Mars connecting to each other's sun. So your sun is your identity, and Mars is how you take action, right? So when one person's Mars connects with another person's sun, so their assertiveness, their energy is infused within the other person's identity. So this is somebody that's pushing you. This is somebody, if you're in a negative space, they might trigger you. They're pushing you too much. But here, there's somebody to help energize your identity, to get you going, to get you moving. Now, so the wife had this connected to the husband, and the husband had his Mars, his energy connected to the wife. So they were both equally pushing each other. Now, if you have that, you better watch out, because if you're triggering, if you're not in a good space, and if you're not conscious of it, that can lead to some really tough fights because there's so much energy there. But they're here to help each other grow and push each other. But if you're aware that you have this and you see that your spouse is not in the greatest space, you can rein it in a little bit. You can pull it back because you know that you have this natural energy that's pushing them. Okay, this is not the right time. Maybe let me go to my moon, to my emotions. Maybe let me be more now in a nurturing space rather than in that, oh, I need this. Let's accomplish this. Let's maybe rein that in a little bit. So the more knowledge and understanding that you have of the different configurations and how you're affecting your spouse, that can be incredibly helpful.
I love that, because we always say your partner holds the blueprint to your missing parts. Your partner holds the blueprint to your healing. We really believe in that people can heal through a relationship, because we are born in a relationship to our mothers, and we are wounded in relationship, and we ultimately heal through relationship. So in an ideal situation, we hold the hope that people can heal through their adult relationships. So that's really like a beautiful way of saying it very practically, that your partner holds the blueprint for your growth and healing. Like they literally hold your blueprint because you're overlaying your charts on top of each other, and it's really a blueprint.
And you can do things on your own. So, I mean, we always talk about the only person you can control is yourself. You can hope to change the other person, but the only person you have power over is yourself. And by learning about those sensitive parts and what you can do and what your tendencies are, that can be really powerful. Even if your spouse thinks, doesn't want to even get involved with any of this, it can make a big difference.
Wow. That's really cool. Oh my goodness. You must just be constantly blown away by what you do.
Nonstop. It's just incredible because just also with the couples chart, besides the synastry chart of comparing two charts together, there's something called a composite chart where you take the two people and you combine them into one unit. And this is very wild. So every couple now, they have a new, they're one person now, and they have a unique personality, and they have unique purpose and mission, what they're here to do. So it's really powerful to understand as a unit, as a couple, what is your purpose? What are you here to do? So I just did a different chart reading for a couple, and they had very strong Chiron. They're here to be the wounded healer. So they're here to heal themselves and then to help heal others as a couple. So that's a very powerful energy. You can see different things of what we're here to do. If Mercury is very strong communication, if it's in fire, you're here to be inspiration. You're here to be a preacher. You're here to encourage others. So you can see the specific areas where you can really work together and accomplish your purpose.
Wow.
Neat.
That's so cool.
Now, how would this work? I think this would be helpful for people that are dating. And how would that work? Let's say someone suggests a particular girl or boy, and they look up the charts beforehand. Is that a dangerous thing?
So yes, that can get tricky. So sometimes when I look at a chart, what I really want to see. So first of all, no, you can't look at a chart and say this person should marry this person. Nobody can ever say that. It doesn't matter. You can have the perfect charts. If one person is unhealthy or undeveloped, they can be very destructive. So you can never say that any chart is the perfect couple. However, you can see the areas. Okay, are they going to be drawn to each other? Let's say if one person's sun is connecting the other person's Uranus, they're going to be fascinated by this other person. That's going to be a big element of their relationship. Or if they have Neptune connecting one to another, that means they might have a sense of just bliss and oneness, just feeling really great in their presence. There's really very particular energies that you can interact with. Now, that doesn't mean that you should get married. It doesn't mean that that's the right person for you to get married, but it will tell you what are the energies and what are sometimes the conflicting energies. And it's okay to have, everybody's going to have some conflicting energies. Ultimately, conflicting energies are things that require work, and then you can turn that into a strength. So everything can be ultimately a strength. But if you have a lot of conflicting energies, sometimes things won't ever take off because there's so much conflicting energies. But I always want to see some type of strong connections, because you can have charts where there really isn't any strong interaction. They're not going to feel strongly about each other at all. There isn't you need to have some type of strong connection. I always say, you know what chemistry is? Chemistry is astrological energies that are connecting people. That's what chemistry is.
So you usually see that, like with that assumption that people that do get married, and let's assume that we're not talking about maybe an arranged marriage where they didn't really get a chance to maybe know each other, but people that's the typical Western dating where they, quote unquote, fall in love. Would you see in their charts that there's usually a strong connection somewhere?
Yeah, sure. You can have a strong, like a Sun Neptune, right? Or Sun Venus, which means one person's sun identity is shining his light on the other person's self-value or on their communication and thinking. So you're drawn to that person. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to end up in a happy marriage. That's an area of connect. That's the reason why you're drawn to them, why you started dating them. You need to do the work, and you also have to see what other parts of the charts. Any two people, if they do the work, can get along, but it's certain ones that can have very different type of relationships based on the chart. And the biggest thing I always tell people, it's your own self-work. Your own growth is going to be the biggest determining factor in your relationship and marriage. If you work on yourself, if you work through your stuff, you recognize your shadow stuff, and you're more conscious, you're going to have a much greater relationship than if you're projecting on your spouse. You have stuff that's going on by you, but you're projecting it and you're blaming her, that it's all her fault, and you're not recognizing it's your own stuff that's coming out through her. So that the greatest thing you can do is self-growth and self-healing.
I think I love how you say that because, I'm sure people listening are wondering, like, do you ever, look at two people's charts and you're like, oh no, stay away. This is terrible. End it now. And I know that in the modality of couples counseling that we practice at Mago, Harville Hendricks, the founder, through quantum physics and through a lot of science, kind of proved in his book, Getting the Love You Want, that people are drawn to their partner for a very specific unconscious reason. And so when we work with a couple, we operate from the assumption that these two people are meant for each other if they chose each other, because there's an unconscious agenda here at work trying to get them to both heal. Whether the marriage ends up with wedded bliss their whole life, that's a different story, but it's not an accident that they chose each other. And so I like what you're saying, that, any two people can feel a connection. The question is, are you going to do the work? And it is work. And are you going to be open to growth? And I think that feels more comfortable than, maybe some of those cliche astrologists that say, oh, this person is terrible for you.
These two signs don't belong together. It's going to be a nightmare.
That is so foolish. I can't stress this enough. I did a couples chart where the wife, her son was in Leo, and which is a fire sign, that's a leader, and the husband's son was in Pisces, which is much more intuitive and sensitive. And everybody's going, oh, they're a terrible couple. No, because her moon, her emotions was in Scorpio, which is a water sign. And that was connecting with his son. There was a direct connection between her emotions and his son, which were both in water. And his moon, his emotions, was in a fire sign connecting to her son that was in a fire sign. So you can't just look at your sun sign. There's other things and they have a beautiful, amazing marriage because different parts of each other are connecting with each other. You cannot go just by the sun sign, for sure.
Amazing. That's amazing. I think that's so helpful for people. Do you have maybe one?
Yeah, one last question is, and this goes back to, you said in the beginning that part of what makes astrology, at least kosher astrology, is that it's not fatalistic. This is not something that, we know it's going to be a certain way. On the other hand, we have this kind of paradox of, that we have free will, but on the other hand, at least, again, we're not getting a theological discussion too much, but, God knows everything that's going to happen. So how do you balance that with the chart? Because it seems like some of these things they're going to wind up happening regardless.
So yes, it's a great question. It's the big life question. But yes, I look at it like we have free will, but it's like a limited free will, or it's a free will in a particular direction. So for example, we have no choice what family we're born into, right? We don't get to pick our parents, right? We don't get to pick our, so this is something that we don't have free will in. Our free will comes now. What do we do with this? This is the situation we're in. So the same thing with our birth chart. These are the skill sets. These are the struggles that we have. It's very particular. We don't have a choice in picking those. The question is, what are we here to do with it? What are we going to do with it? That's where our free will is. And our free will is to do the work, do the growth work, do the healing work, to work through our conflicts, and then hone our skill sets, bring it out to the world. We're each tasked with an incredible gift and purpose in this world to bring to this world. And so many of us, we feel small. We like, no, me, I'm not here to do anything. I'm here to just be. No, each one of us is tasked with incredible gifts and abilities. And as long as we work on healing that and work through the negative blocks, we have so many negative blocks in our head. If we have a strong Saturn, it always says, you're not good enough. You can't go and do this. You can't be the spokesperson. There's a famous thing from the Torah in the Bible where it says Moses, the greatest leader in history, that God picked him to lead the Jews out of Egypt. And Moses answered him back. He said, Ani aral sefasoyim, I have a speech impediment. I can't be the spokesperson for the Jewish people. This is the greatest prophet in history saying this. And he had these doubts. It's very human to think that I'm not perfect. I can't be this person. So each one of us have something that we feel is an imperfection, or we feel, I'm not this person. I've done negative things in my life. No, we're all here to heal, and you're capable of incredible things. You don't have to be perfect. So those are the things that are holding us back. So our free will is to learn to overcome it, to learn to believe in ourselves, to learn that we're here to do great things. And that's what we're here to bring forward to the world.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That's so fascinating. Thank you so much for your knowledge and sharing this and really guiding people through some of these points that feel hopeless maybe, and really giving the world hope for people to see that it's just how it's supposed to be.
And you can be big, and you can take those challenges and those gifts and become your best self.
Absolutely. Nothing is ever hopeless. No, there's always a solution. There's always a process forward. That's the point of life. And even if it feels that way, it can feel we're completely stuck. We have no place to go. There's always a part. There's always a process. There's always a road. Just stay open. That's why I always stay open and believe in yourself. Those are the two big keys to really moving forward in life.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
So if people want to read more, recommend getting Kosher Astrology. We're going to put in the show notes, but Kosher
Yes.
Astrology, it's a great introduction to learning about any questions that you have. And if you want more specific information about your unique chart, you can contact Yitzchak on his website, kosherastro.com.
Right. So my book is available on Amazon, and it's also available on my website, kosherastro.com. If you're interested in a chart reading, we can do that. Also, I have on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel at Kosher Astro, and you can follow me on Instagram, also at Kosher Astro.
That's
Wonderful.
great.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna, and yeah, please reach out. It's really fascinating.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to today's topic, communication problems. We'll be back again to focus on another topic that is sure to help you in your marriage. For any questions or concerns, please email us at info@themarriagerestorationproject.com. Take care